Last week I sent a letter to President Metsola together with other MEPs with the request to immediately withdraw the accreditation of anti-abortion lobbyists. I've never received such intense reactions than after sending this letter, and these reactions showed me that I was on the right track. In this video I am going to explain exactly what is going on with these lobbyists and why it is so important to take away their badges. First things first, why take away their badges? The organizations I am referring to in the letter are not just any conservative or religious values-based organizations. They are the radical religious extremist organizations with connections to counterparts in the United States. And these same US counterparts paved the way for the overturn of Roe v. Wade. They have been organizing for years to restrict and ban the safe and legal access to abortion in the United States. And together they want to create the same draconian situation in Europe. They have collected themselves under the strategic umbrella of Agenda Europe, restoring the natural order. How do we know this? Because these religious extremists have in fact created a manifest where they explicitly write down exactly how they want to roll back on human rights in Europe, specifically women's rights and LGBTI+ rights. The French Arte has exposed this in a documentary, and the European Parliamentary Forum for Sexual and Reproductive Rights have published a thorough report on this. What is Agenda Europe? Agenda Europe is both the professional organization with over 100 organizations from 30 European countries as well as the playbook of the anti-sexual and reproductive rights movement in Europe. The organizations and actors that are attached to Agenda Europe are carrying out the work of their manifest. Some of parts of this agenda are already being rolled out in Europe. Think of the de facto abortion ban in Poland and the ban on equal marriage in Hungary. Which rights are they limiting exactly? Think of all rights concerning sexuality and reproduction. And this is extremely broad and will hit women and the LGBTI community the most, such as right to divorce, right and access to contraception, right to comprehensive sexual education, right to safe and legal abortion or assisted reproduction such as surrogacy, LGBTI equality such as equal marriage, and right to change legal gender identity. What is their strategy? In the manifest they explicitly mention their strategy. So how do they plan to roll back on these rights? First, they speak about weapons of opponents. Use the weapons of our opponents and turn them against them. And with this, they frame the progress of sexual and reproductive rights as discrimination against religious people. Second, like our opponents, frame our issues in terms of rights. Does this sound familiar? One of the main counters to take away the badges of anti-abortion activists was that this was an infringement of the right to freedom of speech. 3. Opponents and non-conducive institutions. This part of the strategy means that human rights, NGOs and institutions, such as the European Fundamental Rights Agency, are smeared publicly to tarnish their credibility. And 4. Become a respected interlocutor at international level. And through networking, they are bringing in their own people in the international institutions and international courts. And this will also bring forth more funding opportunities. Doesn't this sound familiar as well? So why do we need to keep this out of a parliament? We can't give an inch of space to this destructive anti-gender agenda. These are people that would call themselves extremists if that's needed. That's something that they write down themselves. Religious beliefs must not be forced upon other people's lives or take away fundamental human rights. And these organizations are receiving the best practices from the rollout in the US and want to apply this here. So we should not be naive when it comes to this. In the US, these religious extremists receive the space to carry out their destructive agenda. And this is why we in Europe must be vigilant and ensure the protection of human rights for all citizens. This is why I want to take away the badges. This is why I think we should take away the badges, to take away the access to European decision-making and their influence in European institutions, since that is literally part of their strategy. Their toxic, fundamentalist agenda has no place in the heart of the European democracy and in our European institutions.